DARVO technique is a technique used by narcissists to control a situation, to manipulate individuals. It's a technique being used right now to control the entire narrative, the world narrative. The manipulation being done against the original people of the United States is a microcosm of the macrocosm that's happening to the people of the world. And until that story gets exposed for what it is, the narrative control of the entire world will continue. So the first part of this technique is to defend. The second is to attack. And the third is to reverse victim and offender. And these are some of the examples that we have to experience that relate directly to the DARVO technique. So first, defend. When people not of color speak, when we're speaking about our situation, when they're telling us, oh, we freed the slaves, when they give you a Black History Month, when they tell you this is the most free country in the world, you have freedom of speech. This is them defending their system. It's so good. We've done so much for not only you, but for the whole world. We freed the slaves. Slavery was around the world. We freed the world from slavery. The narrative control in that situation is that you focus on them freeing the slaves, not on them enslaving the people. So they, in that one instance, is a DARVO technique being used. Controlling the narrative is the DARVO technique. So you bring up this discussion. Just the very nature of you bringing up this discussion makes people uncomfortable. So they have to defend against even your discussion. You're questioning. You're ungrateful because they freed your ancestors from slavery. They ended slavery. Like I said, don't talk about how they were the ones enslaving people around the world. Don't talk about that. Talk about how this is what Black History Month is about. In fact, we gave you a month with the understanding of the history. That's us exposing ourselves. You can talk about everything that we've done to you within our guidelines. You go outside those guidelines and they will start to defend. Black History Month is a defensive technique. It also makes people feel smaller who don't have their own month. They're once again catering to you, using affirmative action, DEI techniques to bring you up. So the very act of giving you a month brings you down in the eyes of the people who are in those ilks who gave you that month. They feel smaller because they have, it's like a child, two children. You're investing your attention into the slaves. How dare you? So they look down on you. Oh, you have your own month. You have more rights than we do. This is how they use the DARVO technique to get their soldiers to defend the system against you. They trigger their emotional bodies to go against you by supposedly giving you something. They gave you a month. Well, why? What do we have? We have nothing. You have everything. You can get any job you want. Completely flipping their script. This is the defensive technique that they still use to control all the narratives. Part of this defense is putting out these characters, these truthers, these people who are unveiling dark secrets of the government, people like Russell Brand and Alex Jones. They have entire careers exposing information. And in that whole perspective, they do not entertain where you're coming from in the slightest. Your story is insignificant. They are the inverse version of what Black History Month was intended to do. Black History Month was intended to put out all this information supposedly about you and your story. But what doesn't it talk about? People like Russell Brand and Alex Jones are out there to put out all this information about the human story and what we are all going through. But what do they not talk about? They don't acknowledge anything that you're saying. In fact, that lack of even entertaining your presence, your story, that is an action. It is a form of downplaying, and it's a form of narrative control. So they defend. They use guilt. They use shame. They make you feel like you're unappreciative. You have all these rights. You have all these extra things they give you. You're always marching the streets. I can't even find a job. And I'm a white man. They put those kinds of mentalities out there. Screaming white men. Screaming about how bad it is for them. Screaming about how bad it is for all of us. Another savior. So all of those techniques that I mentioned, freeing the slaves, Black History Month, telling everybody that they're the most free country in the world, freedom of speech, all of those are not necessarily microcosms of a macrocosm, but in reference to this last part of the defense, they do represent a specific version of that defense, whereas this version of the defense instantaneously goes across the world. And that is when they create false flags. Because what are they doing when they create these false flags? They're creating a false enemy, a false attack, so they can have a reason to defend themselves, to defend their empire. So this is what false flags are for, to create defensive techniques. So all of the other false flags, all the other operations that were out there can fall underneath this mechanism, this technique, defense. And then after they have created that false flag to raise up these emotions, to get people angry and ready to roll. I was in the army on the day of 9/11. I remember the emotion of the barracks when we were all sent back to the barracks and had to watch that shit on TV. And people thinking, fuck, we're on our way. Let's go. Let's fucking do this shit. I was there. I could see it. I could feel it. This was the atmosphere with the literal boots on the ground. So they create situations where they have to defend themselves. The first part of the DARVO technique. The second part is to attack. Back to the original system, the microcosm story. This is a list of the attacks that come after the defense. So one of the big and most obvious ones is to create this idea of reverse racism. When they don't even go into the actual definition of what racism really is, they control the narrative of what the definition of racism is. And with that narrative control, with that definition, their definition of racism, not ours, our scholars have an understanding, a breakdown of what racism actually is. And that's what it is. But they have this Black History Month version of what racism is. They project that to the world. And then they can say, when you start to rise up, when you start to question their techniques, when you start to call them out, that's reverse racism because you're doing the inverse of what they're doing to you. And we're saying, no, that's not what you're doing to us. We're saying you're doing so much more. We understand the psychology. We understand the spirituality of how we have been and are being attacked. You cannot define our experience for us. You've done enough. Shut the fuck up and let's talk about this. They can't do that. So to maintain their innocence, to maintain the chaos, to maintain the defense techniques, they have to immediately attack you by labeling you a reverse racist. They project this idea of angry Black culture onto you. This is an attack. They label you savages. They redline your communities. These are wartime tactics. As Neely Fuller Jr. used to say all the time, we are prisoners of war. This is a war. People not of color want to downplay that. to level the playing field that we are all being attacked. We are all being enslaved. That is another part of the attack. To downplay your experience, to speak for you. So they make you angry. They make your women angry. They turn you into savages in the eyes of the world. They say, oh, well, you're racist now. You're doing to us what we did to you. We could never do that. In fact, we are not that people. If we did what needed to be done, if we had the same eyes as you, if we did that to you, there'd be an all-out takedown right now, and we wouldn't have this discussion. But we aren't those people. That's not in who we are. This is the whole point of this discussion. We are different, and those differences need to be addressed. They need to be discussed. But the narrative controllers don't want you to talk about those differences because they make their money on talking about how similar we are. Because in those similarities, they can hide what actually happened and maintain control of the narrative. So you have to be the bad guy in order to emphasize them being the good guy. You don't even have to do anything bad, but as long as the good guys say you've done something bad or say you're made up of material that is bad, savage beasts, then you fall under that category. So they redline you. They give you poor education. Maintain your ignorance. They install foods that literally attack your brain. They take the money out of the communities. They take the resources, the food, anything that you need to just survive is taken out of your community. They teach you a one-sided history. They delete your history. They censor your history. They create these so-called police departments, which are extensions of slave catchers, who everybody knows that they are designed specifically to go against. The proof is in the prisons. This is their design. Look at their actions. They are designed to do what they're doing. This is to maintain numbers, control. Then they make heroes out of the slave catchers. Look at how they portray and protect the slave catchers versus how they portray and attack you. They kill you off in Hollywood. They make you angry. These are attacks. They are dehumanizing you in the eyes of the world to justify the attacks against you that control the narrative. Hollywood, the media, is used every day to do this. A quick 5-second blurb about a robbery that led to a murder in some other town close to you. This is how you're controlled. They project onto you that you have a problem in response to being enslaved, but they don't talk about the problems that they are subjected to from doing the enslavement. Let me say this again. There's a heavy projection onto you from being enslaved, but they heavily disregard and avoid the discussion of what happened to them from being the enslavers. You cannot have that discussion. They will immediately go into defending and being aggressive against you from even talking about that. Why? Because that exposes the narrative. It exposes the false narrative of them not being the heroes of the world and of you being an actual victim. Another attack, the genocide that they commit against the people around the world. Compartmentalizing of you, your story, controlling the narrative of who and what you are by creating this idea of race, creating this idea of savagery. And they are holier than thou. They give you your civilization. They give you your religion. They give you your perks of an evolved human society. They did this. And they have to do this. Why? Because you're incapable of doing it for yourself. And this is the only way. Because this is the way evolved humans exist. They attack your integrity by putting these celebrities out there that are constantly fucking up. They put these people out there to make examples of them. These people that they put out there to take down, these are false flags of individuals to make a statement about you as a people. So your character is attacked. Your ancestors are attacked and erased. In the attack part of this technique, the destabilizing of nations and the connections between them is the large-scale attack that's going on. A good example of this is what they did to Gaddafi. They demonized him, went in there, justified the murder of that man, justified the taking out of that man, and in turn, that entire nation. Why? They want to tell you because he was a bad man. But the real story is what he was doing with the money of all of Africa, how he was going to unify and deliver a death blow to the dollar and the world finance markets by what they were going to do with Africa's resources, Africa's money, and their people. He was the main guy in that movement. They took him out. This is how they destabilize nations and entire movements. And that's an attack to defend their system, to defend the narrative. So reverse, victim, and offender, the last part of this technique, is what they do to go against your breaking out of these programs, breaking out of these narratives. So they create, in a sense, false flags in their world. They create controlled oppositions. Just as Black History Month, it's a controlled opposition. They created it. We didn't create that. They created that to make it look like we're doing something or they're doing something for us. But the information that's supposed to be exposed in Black History Month is to talk about what white history has done to black people in history. So in real time, when they do this stuff to reverse this victim and offender, they create programs like CRT. They put it out there to be beat down. Oh, we're wanting to do this for you because we're the good guys. Knowing they're conservatives or whoever else is out there that they're triggering, they know that they're going to be attacked. And then they're going to have to cater to them. And when they cater to them, it's at your expense. So you lose what little bullshit that you thought you were getting. For one, because you're too small to think and give to yourself. If you're allowing yourself to fall for these CRT, DEI, affirmative action programs and not invest in yourself and your people, then that's the problem. That's why these narratives continue to exist and why this program continues to work. We continue to be subjected to these narcissists with these techniques. So they put out there this fake program to be beat down in real life, CRT. They complain against affirmative action. When they have to complain against affirmative action, it makes them the victim. When they have to complain against CRT, it makes them the victim. Critical race theory, critical against who? White people? Us? What do we do now? We already freed the slaves and gave you a Black History Month. Come on, guys. You guys are ungrateful. What is this CRT stuff? You can't teach this in school. We've done so much. Now they're the victim. Using their emotions, using their narrative control to once again downplay your discussion. Because CRT is not us. We didn't bring that to the discussion. Our scholars, our teachers, we're not saying that that's what needs to be done. That's what they're saying needs to be done. Once again, just as people like Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, Alex Jones want to speak for humanity, the world, and what's happening, nah. That's not our discussion. They have to keep us out of the discussion to maintain their relevance in the world discussion. They have to ignore you to remain in the position of the world victim. So when you expose or when you're subjected to false flag systems like CRT and DEI, affirmative actions, that are put out there by them to supposedly do some good for you, it's not out there. That's not the intention. Is not to do good for you. The intention is to be out there, to be attacked, to, in the long run, once again, control your narrative, work against you, and in this case, inflame, add gasoline to the fire of the individuals who are threatened by any little piece of the cake that you get. And by piece of the cake, meaning breaking of the chains. So any chain that you break hurts. They are programmed to be hurt when you are no longer being hurt consistently. When you heal, it hurts them. When you start to heal, it threatens them. That's interwoven into the system. That's interwoven into this technique, because you're no longer subjecting yourself to their attacks. You're no longer subjected to their defense mechanisms. You are out of their reach. And in that case, they have to remove themselves from the attack against you and start to attack you through the eyes of the people around you. And they do that by becoming the victim and once again, making you the aggressor. So they put out their CRT, to be attacked, affirmative action, to be attacked, DEI, to be attacked, to do two things: to make it seem like they care and to empower the people against you because you're getting extra stuff that you don't deserve. We should all be getting this stuff. Meanwhile, they're giving extra stuff to Asians in this Stop Asian Hate campaign and all that stuff. So this is another psychological technique. For one, like I said, the people get something back. In that situation, they created this Stop Asian Hate stuff in the middle of Black Lives Matter. They're getting more people on their team against you. See, they're like us. We'll give them something. The Asian, yes, they're respectable. They're part of our civilization. We can get behind protecting them. You guys, no. Because you're still in that savage behavior. We have to protect these people. Look at them. They're so smart and docile. That's for them. They're not getting behind supposed Asian hatred because they're such good people. They're getting behind that because they want to appear like good people and they want more people on their team. They want the Asians on their team. And when they do all this, what does it do to you? Activates your emotions once again, because here we are in the same position again. We are experiencing the most hate in our own nation. And once again, we are overlooked, dismissed, deflected against, downplayed, and disrespected when those resources once again go to somebody else, another group now. So they make victims out of other people in order to make the victim, to instigate the idea of them being the victim. This is how they reverse it on you. So they're not saying that you're aggressive and savages. They're just saying that somebody is hating against these Asians. Somebody's doing it. And those same somebodies that's hating against Asians, they also hate us because our ancestors enslaved their people. So we should stop this because they're pretty aggressive out there. Another one, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We're all struggling right now. This is the land of freedom. There's more freedoms here than the whole world. Just grab your bootstraps and take care of it. To once again, level the playing field. Leveling the playing field is reversing the victim and offender. Because the playing field has never been level, ever. So to do that, and this is the nature of people, when you talk to people in real life, ignoramuses out there, when you talk to them about these discussions, they talk to you as if the field is level. That's where they start. Because when they start there, it automatically dismisses your entire discussion. Because all they have to do is refer back to the beginning of the discussion. which was the level playing field. And when they refer back to that, you look lazy. You look dumb. You look ignorant. You look like you just can't do it because everybody else has done it except you. And what are they saying by do it, done it? Succeeded in that world. But not everybody has been subjected to what that world has put on us. They can't talk about that because if you talk about that, it uproots their whole idea of a level playing field. And they've installed that mechanism in the minds of everybody around the world, not just people not of color. Everybody thinks that way. You just can't do it. You just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like the Asians, like the Italians and the Irish, who were also enslaved, and the Slavs, who were also slaves. That's where the word slave comes from. They always revert to that shit. When they're saying this on podcasts, when they're saying all that stuff, that is the DARVO technique. It's the defensive technique. When they're talking over you, it's a dismissing of you. It's a technique. Because they're trying to maintain the level playing field, which maintains that they are the victim. And no other victim is bigger than any other victim when we're all victims. So when you talk about your being victimized historically, it's irrelevant. Why? Because I control the narrative. And if I'm saying that we're all victims, who cares about who's been victimized hundreds of years ago? We're talking about everybody being victimized today. You're slowing down our progress by talking about more separation. You're the problem now. And once again, they're the victim. So they avoid the discussion as if you don't matter. They control the narrative to define your insignificance and their importance. This is how they reverse victim and offender. It's a very complex mechanism that has been existing for centuries. And it's just evolved. In fact, that's the only thing that's truly evolved is the complexity of how they control the narrative. And as long as we continue to allow that story to define our progress, our steps, our story, as long as we allow ourselves to be subjected to these techniques, we will only be able to go so far.